I'm Grace Ellis, 60 years old, and for 25 years, I've carried the sour taste of a betrayal that stripped me of my winemaking heritage and left me to claw my way back from the vines. It was the autumn of 2000, a crisp March evening in Marlborough, New Zealand, the air heavy with the scent of ripe Sauvignon Blanc grapes hanging heavy on the vines and the earthy musk of damp soil after a light rain, when I faced my former partner, Thomas Rutherford, in the dimly lit tasting room of our shared vineyard, Ellis Rutherford Estates. The room, with its oak barrels stacked to the rafters, a long wooden table scarred from years of wine tastings, and a panoramic view of the rolling hills of the Wairau Valley, had been my sanctuary during the relentless days of harvest and bottling that defined my early career, a place where the clink of glasses and the rich aroma of oak-aged Pinot Noir had fueled my passion. But that night it transformed into a courtroom where my dreams were trampled under the weight of his greed. I was 35 then, a skilled winemaker with a nose for blending varietals, my innovative technique of cold fermentation for crisp whites earning local awards and catching the attention of Auckland distributors, my blends earning murmurs of expansion among the weathered workers who saw me as the future of the estate. I'd partnered with Thomas in 1997, pooling our resources, mine from years of saving as a cellar hand, his from a family inheritance, to establish the vineyard on a plot of land I'd nurtured from scrub, my name a quiet promise among the community who believed in my vision. But that evening, as I presented a detailed business plan, featuring a new Riesling blend, a tourism expansion with cellar door tours, and a contract with a Wellington exporter to secure a $100,000 loan from the New Zealand Wine Growers Association and elevate our estate's status, Thomas's demeanor shifted from ally to adversary, his posture stiffening as he swirled a glass of my latest vintage. "You'll never lead this vineyard, Grace. Stick to pruning," he barked, his voice echoing off the barrel walls, his eyes glinting with a mix of contempt and ambition as he set the glass down with a deliberate clink. He admitted, with a smug tilt of his head that sent a chill through me, that he'd stolen my blend recipe, registering it under his name and presenting it to the association just days before my pitch, securing the loan and a feature in Wine Spectator that touted his genius. To bury me, he orchestrated my ousting with fabricated claims, poor yield management based on manipulated harvest logs, unprofessional conduct from a staged dispute over a broken barrel, supported by a loyal foreman he'd paid off, and a conveniently timed equipment failure that lost my detailed fermentation notes, which I'd stored in a locked cabinet that appeared tampered with after a late-night inventory. The association, swayed by Thomas's 10-year tenure, his ties to a wealthy Christchurch investor, and my lack of allies, my notes gone, leaving me voiceless, upheld his decision in 2001, forcing me out, my reputation smeared across New Zealand's wine region as unreliable and overambitious, a stain that lingered like spilled wine. My husband, Daniel, a kind-hearted shepherd with a love for Maori folk songs and a steady hand, supported me, but our savings dwindled under veterinary bills for our flock, our dream of a larger homestead with a tasting patio fading into the cramped reality of a cottage with cracked plaster, a creaky chair, and a leaky roof that dripped during storms. Those words, "Never lead this vineyard, stick to pruning," became a relentless echo, a bitter refrain that haunted every grape I sorted, every barrel I tended, every moment I stood alone with my thoughts, the sound mingling with the rustle of leaves and the distant bleat of sheep. I can still feel the weight of those early months after the ousting, sitting on that creaky chair in our Marlborough cottage, the rolling hills visible through the window a reminder of my lost domain, as I flipped through wine journals and job listings in the press, the ink smudging my fingers with each turn of the page, my eyes burning with exhaustion after sleepless nights replaying Thomas's betrayal. The cottage with its hand-me-down furniture, a wobbly table Daniel had salvaged from a shearing shed, a rug woven by his mother with frayed edges, and a single window overlooking a muddy paddock where our lambs grazed, felt a world apart from the elegant tasting room I built, its air heavy with the lingering scent of fermenting grapes I'd brought home on my boots, a reminder of the life I'd lost. Daniel took on extra shearing contracts, working dawn to dusk in the Canterbury Plains, his evenings spent mending fences under a kerosene lamp, the scent of wool and sweat a testament to his sacrifice, while I pieced together a fragile existence with casual work at a local winery in Blenheim, grape-picking gigs in Nelson, and weekend shifts at a tourist vineyard in Queenstown. Each cluster a fight to reclaim my craft, every dollar a step toward survival in a region where land prices climbed and wine dreams felt out of reach. Our daughter, Lily, born in 2003 after years of hoping, grew up surrounded by empty bottles turned into vases, winemaking books stacked beside her crib, her childish questions a tender ache. "Why don't you make wine with Daddy Thomas anymore, Mummy?" she'd ask, her small hands tracing the label of a bottle I'd saved. I'd smile through the tightness in my throat, spinning tales of new vineyard adventures to share with the world. But the truth gnawed at me. Thomas had blacklisted me, his narrative of my instability spreading to distributors and growers, his charm a facade for his theft, leaving me sidelined from winemaking roles. Thomas's career thrived in the years that followed. By 2010, he'd expanded Ellis Rutherford Estates into a luxury brand, his name etched on awards from the International Wine Challenge, his wealth evident in a waterfront home in Auckland, a yacht docked in the Bay of Islands, and a leased Land Rover for his tours. He hosted lavish wine festivals at Te Papa, his wife Margaret dazzling in silk at charity auctions for vineyard preservation, his son Jack rising as a sommelier with a degree from Lincoln University, while I rebuilt quietly, starting a small batch wine label by 2005 from our garage. My bottles grew, a boutique shop in Christchurch, a cafe in Dunedin, who savored my blends, my reputation a quiet undercurrent in New Zealand's wine scene passed along at farmers markets and wine fairs. But the wound deepened with every milestone of Thomas's success. His smug tastings at the Marlborough Wine Show, Margaret's Instagram posts from Tuscany, Jack's sommelier accolades and decanter, each a fresh sting. My parents, both gone by 2017, had believed his lies, their final years dimmed by his version of events, their letters filled with concern over my struggles. Lily, now a viticulture student at Massey University, grappled with shame, her early career shadowed by Thomas's influence, her attempts to reconcile with me strained by her childhood admiration for the man, Daniel's unwavering love, his hand-carved wine racks, his late-night songs under the stars, his repairs of our leaking roof kept me grounded, his presence a steady vine in the storm. The turning point came 6 years ago, in 2019, when the first cracks in Thomas's polished facade appeared. His vineyard faced lawsuits over contaminated batches, customers complained of off flavors on social media, and a whistleblower exposed falsified harvest data in a New Zealand Herald expose. At 55, with my knees aching from years of stooping in the fields, I began my discreet investigation, contacting old workers over coffee at roadside cafes in Blenheim. I'd meet them in the early mornings, my notebook a shield, listening to their tales of Thomas's decline. Overworked pickers, adulterated wines, a culture of fear, over plates of bacon and eggs. Last month, on July 20th, 2025, I sat with Hannah, a former cellar hand who'd left in 2017, at a cafe in Nelson, the hum of espresso machines a faint backdrop. Her trembling hands pass me a USB drive. He's unraveling, stolen blends, fake data, pressure on staff to hide defects. She murmured, her voice thick with regret. "That Riesling was yours, Grace." My pulse raced. This was the proof I'd waited for. On August 10th, 2025, I reached out to Sam, a journalist with stuff who'd uncovered agricultural scandals with a keen eye, meeting him at his cluttered office in Wellington. We poured over the USB photos of my 2000 recipe sketch, detailed logs of Thomas's theft, emails hinting at bribed inspectors. This could sink him, Sam said, his voice a mix of excitement and caution. But we need the right moment. On August 22nd, 2025, I dug deeper, turning our cottage kitchen into a detective's lair. Amid wine guides and grape samples, I accessed industry records online, my fingers stiff but resolute. At 10 a.m., I found it, a 2021 audit report buried in the Ministry for Primary Industries archives, tied to my blend, now linked to a contamination scandal that cost the estate $200,000 in fines. My hands shook as I printed it, the past merging with the present in a surge of clarity. That evening, at a contextual hour, I sat by my window, the New Zealand hills a soft silhouette, plotting my next move. The New Zealand Wine Awards were on September 20th, a glittering event to mask Thomas's decline. I'd attend, not as the pruner, but as his reckoning. What he didn't know was I'd transformed my pain into a vintage of justice, aged by 25 years of resilience. The 4 weeks leading to the awards were a meticulous blend of strategy and secrecy, my days tending my garage label a cover for the Revenge fermenting in my bottles. By August 25th, 2025, our Marlborough cottage kitchen, its walls lined with wine journals faded by sunlight, its table cluttered with tasting notes stained with red wine, its air rich with the scent of oak chips and yeast, became my war room where every scribbled blend ratio and cork sample fueled my resolve. Sam and I met nightly, his laptop open on my wobbly table as we sifted through the USB and audit reports, the soft gurgle of a carboy fermenting a rhythm to our plotting. My 2000 Riesling blend, with its cold fermentation and floral notes, had won Thomas his awards, its success a cornerstone of his rise, while my tourism ideas, cellar door events I'd planned, had been exploited, leading to the 2021 scandal. Hannah's data uncovered a trail, stolen blends from 2005, falsified yields in 2018, a cover-up of a 2020 mold issue hushed with inspector bribes, a fragile empire teetering on collapse. I contacted Peter, a retired vintner who'd clashed with Thomas over a 2010 land dispute, his gravelly voice joining us via a crackling Zoom call from his retirement home in Hawke's Bay. This could revoke his medals, strike during his speech, he advised, his tone laced with old resentment. I nodded, my plan a vintage crafted from 25 years of suppressed rage, each step a memory of lost harvests, stolen credit, shattered trust. The awards, set for 6 p.m. on September 20th, 2025 at the Christchurch Art Gallery, would be Thomas's showcase, a gathering of winemakers, critics, media, and tourists, all drawn by the promise of prestige under the gallery's modern glass dome. I'd pose as a retired winemaker, my work jacket swapped for a modest dress with a hidden pocket, my movements slow with a cane to conceal my intent, my gray hair in a loose bun a symbol of my enduring dignity. My task was to deliver the evidence to Sam, who'd signal Peter's critic contacts at 7 p.m., timed with Thomas's acceptance speech, ensuring maximum exposure. I secured an invitation through Lily, now a viticulture student who'd networked with a judge. Her email on August 28th, a glossy pass I clutched like a shield, her note reading, "You've earned this, Mom." She suspected nothing, her admiration a tool I'd wield with care. Preparation was a rigorous harvest, a blend of physical stamina and emotional fortitude. I practiced my shuffle daily along the vineyard rows, perfecting a weary gait and a warm, unassuming smile that masked my burning resolve, my cane tapping a rhythm of patience against the soil. I rehearsed lines, just here to honor winemaking traditions, though each word carried the weight of Thomas's betrayal, Daniel's steadfast love, and Lily's silent burden over my past struggles. Physically, I pressed grapes and bottled samples daily, my knees protesting, but each press strengthened my will to stand tall that night. I revisited old mementos, recipe sketches from 2000, a faded photo with Daniel at a wine fair, a cork Lily painted, a rejected loan proposal, each a spark in my fire. One night, I found a charred fermentation log from the equipment failure, its edges singed, and wept, the lost potential fueling my fury. I tracked Lily's life, her university challenges, her friendship with a sommelier named Ethan, hoping this act would heal our bond. On September 17th, Thomas called, his tone oily with false warmth. "Grace, the awards are big. Bring Lily, let's bury the hatchet." I agreed, hiding my scheme. He didn't suspect I'd coordinated with Sam, who'd lined up Peter's contacts, or that I'd commissioned a dress with a hidden pocket, its fabric a shield of my past honor. The dress arrived on September 19th, sewn by a local seamstress from Blenheim, Mrs. Nada, who chatted about her garden, unaware of my mission. I tested the pocket, sliding the USB, and awed inside. There weighed a promise of justice. At 5:30 p.m. on September 20th, I arrived, the gallery buzzing with the clink of wine glasses and the murmur of excited vintners, the hills framing the glass. Thomas spotted me near the entrance, smirking. "Grace, still tending vines?" "Charming effort," he quipped. I nodded, my cane steady, my pocket ready. At 6:45 p.m., he began his speech, boasting his winemaking legacy and unveiling a new Riesling echoing mine. I scanned, Lily clapping awkwardly, Ethan beside her, media filming. At 6:58 p.m., I slipped Sam the USB and Audit whispering, "Now." He nodded, texting Peter. At 7:02 p.m., critics stormed in, badges glinting under the dome light, shouting, "Investigation underway." Thomas's notes scattered, his face paling as they seized his tablet. The awards ceremony erupted into a maelstrom of chaos, attendees scattering like startled quail fleeing the gallery's polished floors, media cameras pivoting to capture every second of the unfolding drama, Thomas's protests drowned by the authoritative commands of critics that reverberated off the glass dome, the modern art pieces casting jagged shadows across the scene. Lily stood stunned near a wine-tasting station, Ethan's hand on her shoulder offering quiet support, her eyes wide with disbelief as the truth unraveled, while winemakers murmured in clusters, their industry shaken to its roots. I stood firm, my dress a badge of my hard-earned resolve forged over 25 years, my cane a symbol of strength that had carried me through the driest seasons, my heart pounding with a mix of 25 years of vindication and the bittersweet ache of a family nearly lost to Thomas's deceit that had cast a long shadow. Critics swarmed the stage, their dark coats a stark contrast to the gallery's sleek decor of white walls and polished wood, cuffing Thomas as he roared, "This is a farce! Grace, you'll pay for this!" His voice cracking with the desperation of a man watching his vineyard empire wilt. They read charges, plagiarism that stripped his medals, falsified data that undermined his reputation, health violations that risked lives. Each word a hammer blow to his legacy, the list growing with a $300,000 fine for unaccounted loans that funded his yacht, their voices steady as they recited the litany of his transgressions. Sam approached, his voice a lifeline amid the din of shouting and camera clicks. "They've nailed him, Grace. You've done it. His empire's done," he said, his eyes alight with the thrill of the scoop. The media frenzy was instantaneous. Headlines like "Rutherford's Vineyards Crumble" and "Winemaker's 25-year revenge" flashed across screens. By 9 p.m., my name a murmur of awe in the chaos that swirled through the gallery, microphones thrust toward me like harpoons, seeking a story. Thomas turned to me, his face flushed with rage that mottled his once-tanned skin, sweat beading on his brow like dew on morning grapes. His tailored suit now wrinkled as critics tightened their grip on his arms, his posture sagging under the weight of defeat. "You, after all this time, you stubborn old grower? You've destroyed my life," he bellowed, his voice breaking with the desperation of a man whose wine dynasty was fermenting into ruin, his hands shaking as he pointed at me with a trembling finger. I met his gaze, unflinching despite the tremor in my own hands that betrayed the adrenaline surging through me, my voice clear and resonant with the strength of 25 years of silent suffering that had distilled my resolve. "You said I'd never lead this vineyard, Thomas, that I was only fit for pruning. I proved you wrong. with evidence that outlasts your lies, with grit that weathered your schemes, with every bottle I crafted while you stole and faltered. This is my payback. For me, for Lily whose childhood you darkened, for every grower you crushed, for every dream you crushed with your greed. He lunged, his fist raised in a futile gesture of defiance that spoke of his final grasp at power, but critics restrained him with firm hands, dragging him out as Margaret sobbed uncontrollably, her wine glass slipping to shatter on the floor in a spray of crimson, a symbol of her fallen status. Lily rushed to me, her voice breaking through the noise like a lifeline tossed into a stormy sea. "Mum, I didn't know the depth. I'm so sorry for doubting you," she said, tears streaking her face as she wrapped her arms around me, the first embrace in years that mended a rift I'd feared permanent. I hugged her back, the warmth of her body against mine a balm to the wounds of the past, Ethan nodding in support with a quiet smile, a bridge to a future reclaimed from the vines of my past. The crowd buzzed with reporters, their microphones thrust toward me like lances seeking a headline, but I turned away, my victory a private vintage burning bright within, a flavor no critic could bottle. The fallout was swift and relentless, a tempest that uprooted the remnants of Thomas's wine empire. Critics suspended him from Ellis Rutherford estates, seizing vineyards in Marlborough and cellars in Hawke's Bay where barrels sat silent, records from export logs hauled away in crates, freezing his personal accounts that held the profits of his deceit, halting his festival appearances across Australasia, where he'd once presided, while inspectors raided his Auckland home for evidence of fraud, uncovering a cellar stocked with falsified certificates. His empire collapsed like a vine blighted by rot, his reputation tarnished beyond salvage, vineyards distancing themselves with press releases, his name a cautionary tale whispered in tasting rooms from Gisborne to central Otago, a fallen titan replaced by silence. The media dug deeper, uncovering a $150,000 slush fund for bribed inspectors that funded his Bay of Islands yacht and Margaret's wardrobe, a detail that sent shockwaves through the New Zealand wine industry and prompted a national review, the scandal-dominating evening news. Lily reconciled fully, moving to our cottage to help expand my label into a boutique winery, her viticulture skills blending with mine, while Ethan joined as a marketer, his creativity a new harvest. Daniel and I rekindled our dreams, planning a homestead tour to a property we'd finally afforded, the scent of grape blossoms a promise of peace. Margaret faded from charity circuits, her social circle evaporating like morning mist, and Jack, Thomas's son, distanced himself, seeking a cellar job under a new mentor to escape the taint. I didn't gloat. My aim was justice, not destruction, a balance I'd learned from years of tending vines. But the sight of Thomas's fall brought a profound peace that filled the hollow left by his words, a quiet satisfaction that settled in my heart like a well-aged wine. That night, at a contextual hour, I sat with a glass of my own Riesling that glowed amber in the lamplight, the news confirming his suspension on a muted radio, a letter from Thomas in hand, its envelope creased from my grip. "Grace, I was wrong. Help me," it pleaded, his handwriting shaky with the defeat that had finally overtaken him. The ink smudged, as if by tears of regret. I didn't reply, the past too raw, my strength too hard one to soften now, the paper crumpling in my fist as I set it aside to focus on the vineyard ahead. Months later, his hearing began in a courtroom in Christchurch, critics and inspectors wielding my evidence with the precision of a vintner's shears, Hannah's testimony a damning narrative of vineyard corruption, and Peter's audit records of final vintage, the gallery filled with former workers who nodded in silent support, their boots traded for suits. I attended the first day, my presence a silent testament to my journey from cellar hand to this moment, seated beside Lily and Daniel, whose hand I held tightly, and watched Thomas's defense wither under the weight of truth. Dozens of former staff stepping forward with tales of pressure and theft, their voices a chorus of validation that echoed through the room. The judge, a stern jurist with a love for Pinot Noir, and a gavel that rang like a toast, ordered a full investigation, hinting at a potential ban from winemaking and fines that loomed like a drought, his ruling a vindication of my 25-year wait. Lily and I launched Ellis Vineyards, restoring family pride with artisanal wines, hiring Hannah as a cellar manager whose expertise bridged my past and present, while Daniel retired from shepherding to teach Maori crafts to youth, his hands finding new purpose in flax weaving. I visited the old estate once, its vines silent with the absence of Thomas's voice, its barrels a memory of my youth, a monument to his greed, and my redemption that stood tall in my soul. My revenge, 25 years in the making, was not just justice served with a twist of spite. It was my rebirth, a legacy reclaimed from the roots of his sabotage, a testament to the resilience I'd always carried within, a vintage that aged stronger with each passing season.